Hey there, Universes, it's me, Levi, and today we're going to talk about Clash decks. So what is a Clash deck? Well, my dear viewers, I'm glad you asked. A Clash deck is simply put the first step to every single fledgling hero's journey into the My Hero Academia card game, or just Universes as a whole. They are 51 card pre-built decks that are ready to play right out of the box. Most of our booster sets are usually accompanied by a pair of these, and Jetburn is no exception because it's coming in with two of the sickest Clash decks that we've released yet in Ochaco and Ochaco Toga. Every Clash deck is awesome in its own right, but it's always super exciting when they feature some fan favorite characters as well, making them even more beginner friendly and approachable. Now, if you take a look at the back of the box here, we're also going to get a list of contents for each deck, as in what cards are included and what quantities. Now, there is a slight footnote. When it comes to the Ochaco deck, there's actually 4 quick response in here and only 3 quirk expertise, and then down here at 0 gravity rush, it lists 3, but there's actually 2 inside of this box. The back of each box is also going to let you know that you get a sweet little playmat and a rulebook inside here, as well as if you head over to our website, you can get a ton of info on how to play and how to find events near you, which you can of course also do on the UGN app. The Universes Gaming Network is the perfect place to start if you're trying to get into the My Hero card game. Making an account on there lets you enter events, find stores near you that are hosting events, and of course track all of your loyalty points that you rack up as you play in events, which you can then redeem for really sweet free promo cards in the mail. That being said, the most exciting part about any card game is of course the cards themselves, so let's dig into these Clash decks and see what they have to offer us. I'm a massive Ochaco fan, so let's get into her first and see how we're going to be floating our rivals away when it comes to Jetburn. Alright, so you see we've got our pre-built deck here, and of course we've got a little playmat. And these are just going to be super nice when you're still learning how to play. It's going to help you track things like progressive difficulty, where your stage is, your deck discard pile, all of the basics in the basics. We even have a little live tracker up here as well. So a great resource for our beginner players. But of course, the cards. The cards are what I really want to get into here. So let's take a look at the brand new Ochaco coming into My Hero's card game. And just so you know, there's actually a nice little pull tab here, which just lets you open the deck super duper easily. The newest version of Ochaco in the game is, of course, as she is always, related heavily to high attacks. Her quirk, her power is all about floating objects, floating herself, and attacking from above. So you're going to have a lot of high zone attacks, a lot of charge attacks, also being her primary keyword. And this Ochaco actually gets to unflip and flip and ready a lot of her foundations. Ochaco, again, mastering air, mastering gravity. She's all about card movement. So when you're taking your foundations that are committed and readying them back up over and over again with this character, it almost feels like you're floating them back up. Something that's infamous in our game is that we always pay very close attention to detail to try and replicate the powers and the abilities of our character cards within our game, so that no matter who you're playing as, you always feel like you're really embodying them. Now, this is a seriously awesome character card, but let's check out some of the attacks that really make her super cool. You're gonna get 2 copies of 0 gravity. This is kind of like the big attack of the deck, right? This one's got the super duper fancy art. It's got this amazing, beautiful foil pattern, and it's pretty seriously powerful too. Letting you ready some foundations, and of course give your next one a massive damage buff. This is a really good aggressive piece for Ochaco, and man, I can't get over that art. The sunset in the background, actually magnificent. Now you're going to get 2 copies of a foundation as well with the same treatment, and that's Snap Out of It, another seriously powerful card for recuperating a lot of your resources. And once again, a gorgeous foil pattern and a gorgeous exclusive illustration. Only in the My Hero Academia card game will you find art like this, and it's wonderful. As we move throughout the rest of the deck, we're going to get 2 copies of Close Quarters Subdual, 2 copies of Floating Drop, 3 copies of Harpoon Vault, 2 copies of Neck Chop. Oh my goodness, Ochaco, calm down. We got 3 copies of Swift Redirect. We got 3 copies of Gravity Stunner. Poor Monoma, man. We got 2 copies of 0 Gravity Rush. Then as we enter the rest of our foundations, we have 3 copies of Concern for a Friend. We have 4 copies of Flustered, one of the funniest arts in the entire card game, in my opinion. We've got 4 copies of Quick Response, 3 copies of Quirk Expertise, our signature 6 check of the deck. You're going to want to hang on to those. 3 copies of Reaching Out, beautiful exclusive illustration on this one. Love the art on this card. We got 4 copies of Resourceful, 4 copies of Warm and Bubbly, and then lastly 4 copies of Weightless. And that's the contents of our Ochaco Clash deck. This is a really good pickup for beginners, for fans of My Hero, for fans of Ochaco, and for anyone who just likes a really fun combo aggressive playstyle. Ochaco involves a lot of pieces moving together, a whole lot of card movement, and if you play all of your cards right, she puts together attack strings and aggressiveness that is an extremely fun puzzle to try and figure out. But now let's check out a little bit about her foil, Miss Himiko Toga, in her Clash deck. And second verse, same as the first, you're going to notice that we have our playmat here. And then I didn't cover this in the first one, but you actually do get this really awesome Welcome to Universus paper here. That's essentially just going to give you a QR code to sign up on that Universus gaming network that I was telling you about earlier. But now let's get into this Himiko Toga deck. And now, well guys, I am a massive Ochaco fan. I really like the gameplay style that this Toga is working with. This Toga, on top of having some of the sickest character art and background in our entire game, is a really cool character that interacts very heavily with weapon attacks. Ochaco likes her high attacks. Well, Toga's a big fan of weapons, in case you haven't checked out the series. This Toga is all about momentum, a very unique game zone we have where cards go after they've dealt damage to your rival. So after you've drawn blood with your weapons, they're going to go into your momentum kind of like a little bank. Very similar to how after Toga draws your blood, she gets access to your powers. And so this Toga is just all about sneaking those hits in, getting those pokes at you, getting those stabs in, stockpiling all her different powers and abilities throughout the blood she acquires, and then unleashing all of them in some combo strings. It is a super cool reflection of her transformation quirk and the way it operates, and also makes for a really cool toolboxy technical playstyle. Awesome character aside though, let's get into some of these attacks, and the big one that you're going to see right on the top here is Deadly Ambush. This is a seriously awesome looking card that's packing some beautiful art and some just as powerful abilities. If you manage to connect with this one, you're going to gain a little bit of health, and then your rival's going to lose a little bit of health. You're going to quite literally take their blood when you hit them with this, and that's very cool. So you're gonna get 2 copies of that attack, and then our all-star foundation here is gonna be Abandoning All Inhibitions. A lot of Toga's abilities are all centered around playing the first attack of your turn, because that's gonna be your one poke that you get in, and her playstyle is all about poking and then kind of getting out. So this one, just getting to say that your first attack doesn't count towards progressive, is really powerful, and what a super cool illustration to boot. Rounding out our attacks, we've got 2 copies of Ambush Thrust. We've got 2 copies of Gouging Needle. We've got 3 copies of Leaping Slice. Quite the acrobat here. We got 3 copies of Multi-Needle Puncture. We've got a few copies of Series of Stabs. Poor Lock cannot catch a break when it comes to a lot of these Toga cards. I have a couple copies of Sudden Stab. And then lastly, 2 copies of Twirling Needle. I think one of my favorite things about all Toga's attacks is just the series of events that they really depict for her across the whole series. We've got a card depicting her in the forest during the summer camp arc, a card from her during the overhaul arc fighting Lock, and then a card of her in the My Villain Academia arc fighting the Paranormal Liberation Front. So like no matter when you've enjoyed Toga, there's a card to represent those fights. Next up, let's check out some foundations. We've got 4 copies of Blood Bank from her quirk explanation to the Shie Hisaikai. Absolutely adorable art on this card. Got a few copies of Blood Sample, looking very longingly at this vial here. We have 4 copies of Dangerous Combatant. And we've got 3 copies of Deft Maneuvers. And we've got 4 copies of Strange Friendship. One of my favorite scenes, one of my favorite duos. Love the art on this card. 4 copies of Transformation Materials. 4 copies of Twisted Love. So glad that this screen cap made it into one of these cards. Easily one of my favorite Toga moments. And lastly, 3 copies of Weapon of Choice. And that Universus concludes our showcase on our 2 newest Jetburn Clash decks, Ochaco Uraraka and Himiko Toga. Which one are you going to go for? They're both really great ways to start out the game, no matter if you prefer Ochaco's fast-paced combo aggression style, or if you prefer Toga's more technical, methodical game plan of stockpiling powers. Both of them make some fantastic ways to begin getting into our game and are going to put you on the right track to being the best hero or villain that you can possibly be. You'll be able to get your hands on these alongside Set 6 Jet Burn itself on November 17th, but in the event that you want to get in on the action a little bit more before then, beginning November 10th and running for a full week, we have our Jet Burn pre-release events, which if the Clash deck is the best thing to pick up when you're getting into the game, a pre-release is your best first event to go to. Pre-releases are played with a sealed format, meaning you don't have to show up with anything. All you do is pick up your packs and you make a deck out of them and you get going right then and there. You don't need anything to get started, and you're playing with cards on the same level as everyone else. You're all just working with what you got, and it's an absolute blast and a great way to experience the fun of deck building in our game as well. And if you don't know where you can take place in these events, well, don't worry. If you go check out that lovely, lovely Universes Gaming Network, you can use the store locator to find stores that are hosting events near you, so that there's no excuse to miss out on this Jet Burn pre-release action. Between Clash decks here, pre-releases there, and one of the sickest booster sets coming out on the horizon, there truly has never been a better time to get into the My Hero Academia card game. Whichever Clash deck route you prefer, I hope to see you on the other side of the table one day. But until then, stay classy, Universes.